Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do my April wrap up. I'm just going to jump right into it because I don't want this video to be too long. The first one that I wanted to talk about was All Systems Red by Martha Wells, and this is a science fiction novella. It was only 150 pages and it's about a murder bot. It's the point of view of a murder bot, and in this book she's basically kind of like contract to hire security guard. That's basically the best way that I could describe it. And she is sent on a mission along with a group of humans, and something goes very wrong in that mission, and so she's in charge of protecting them. I thought that it was really interesting how we kind of from the beginning of the book just jump right into the point of view of the murder bot, and yeah, and we see the world through her eyes. I also thought this book was way too short. I really can't wait for the second book. I believe it's going to be a series, and I'm really hoping that the second book is a little more fleshed out and we get a lot more information, because I really wanted to get to know this character a lot more and know what happens next. So I thought that was really fun, quick read. The next one I wanted to talk about is The Diary of Frida Kahlo, which was edited by Carlos Fuentes. Basically a scanned copy of portions of her diary, which I found fascinating. She did sketch a lot in her diary. She wrote a lot about Diego, her husband. She also wrote a lot about her pain. She had gone through many surgeries, and so she wrote about that. And then I really enjoyed how the end of the book, the editor, first of all, he starts with like an introduction, and then at the end of the book he translates all of the entries and also provides some sort of analysis in addition to a little timeline of events in Frida Kahlo's life. And so I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad that I finally got to read that book. It was one that I wanted to read for a long time, but I couldn't find it at any library, and thankfully my library had it. The next one I want to talk about is The Invention of Nature by Wulf. And I absolutely loved this book. This is basically a biography of Alexander von Humboldt, who was a naturalist slash scientist. And over the years, we've completely forgotten about his contributions to science. And Andrea Wulf does talk about why that is in the book. But basically, she takes us through his first expedition, and then the outcome of the expedition, his family life, his personality, his education, his motivations. She also talks about people that were influenced by his discoveries and were later on prominent scientists themselves. So one of them was Charles Darwin, for example. And then she wraps it up a little bit about his legacy or lack thereof. So I thought that this was a well-researched, super fascinating book. I listened to the audiobook and I really, really enjoyed it. I'll have the information about the audiobook down below. I think that Andrea Wulf really took her time with this book. I think when I picked up the book and I saw the number of notes, I mean, it must be like 100 pages of just notes of all her sources. It's just a fantastic piece of work. So I highly recommend it if you're into nature or science at all. If you don't know anything about Alexander von Humboldt, then it's a perfect book to try, because you will know everything you want to know about him and his legacy or lack thereof, like I said. The next one that I wanted to talk about is The Genius of Dogs by Brian Hare. And this is basically all about dog intelligence. Hare is a scientist who is studying dog intelligence, I believe, for his PhD, and that's why he created a bunch of experiments to gauge the genius of dogs. So that's what this book is about. In the book, he talks about these experiments, and then he talks about other animal intelligence and how dogs compare. He also talks about how dogs have evolved over time. Why are they so intelligent compared to other animals? Why are dogs so different to wolves, even though they have a common ancestor? He talks about all of that, and it makes it a really fun, easy read, very engaging. This book made me want to read about some other animals that he mentioned and their intelligence. I thought that it was fascinating. The next book I want to talk about is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. And this is the story of a young girl named Melanie who is growing up in a world in the not so distant future where pretty much most of humanity has died or converted into hungries. Hungries are like zombies, and the difference with Melanie is that she knows that there's something different about her in the way that she's treated, but she doesn't really understand why or what's happening outside of the walls where she's based in. And then the book kind of progresses slowly. You get to learn with Melanie what has been going on with civilization, why she's in this camp, why she's treated differently, and the book kind of takes off from there. that's all I really want to say. I don't want to spoil this book for anybody because part of the fun is figuring things out along with Melanie. There's also a lot of gray areas in this book. Nothing is black and white, and so that was really fun to explore along with Melanie, and even Melanie herself goes through a huge change in the book. I really enjoyed it. I listened to the audiobook, so I'll have the audiobook information down below. It was really well done, and I basically listened to this book. I mean, any chance that I had, I would listen to this book. Just really well done. I'm going to be doing a full review on this book, so keep a lookout for that if you're interested, but I absolutely loved it. So yeah, so I definitely recommend that one if you're at all into zombies or zombie genre, or want to just read something different about zombies, or you know, what's the typical tropes of zombies don't happen here, not really. So if you're interested in that, then I highly recommend it. And then the last one that I read was Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. This is a fantasy series. I think this is Mark Lawrence's first book. And I could tell it was his first book, but this is basically the story of a young boy named Jorg, or Prince Jorg, and one day he's with his mom and his brother, and they're attacked on the road, and he escapes, but he's able to watch what they do to his mom and his little brother. His dad does not pursue the killers. He decides to do a peace treaty instead, and Jorg cannot handle that. Jorg escapes from the castle, and then he bands together with a group of thugs and criminals, and he ends up leading the pack. He's basically driven by revenge and hate, and so even though he's very young, he's able to lead this pack of thugs and criminals and do all kinds of mischief, and eventually he comes back home to reclaim what is his. So that's basically what the book is about. There's a lot more that goes into this series. It is a fantasy series, so there's a lot of fantastical elements that I'm not going to go into. I felt like Jorg was kind of a Mary Sue, which always takes me out of his story because he's the type of character that can do no wrong. He's kind of a badass. He doesn't, care about what people think. He does what he wants. He takes matters into his own hands, even though he's only 14. I mean, it's just a lot of kind of like fantasy tropes in this book. But I kind of am going to give Mark Lawrence a pass because it's his first book. And I recently read one of his other books, Red Sister, and I thought that it was way better than this book. I could see him evolve as an author, and so I'm going to give him a chance on this series and continue with it. It is a fun, fast-paced read. If you can get over the Mary Sue elements, then I think you'll really enjoy it. Not the best fantasy book I've read, but it does have a lot of promise, so I'm going to keep at it. And then the other book that I'm reading right now is The Good People by Hannah Kent. I'm about halfway through this one. And then I started No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy, and so far I'm really loving it. And those are all the books that I managed to read this month. I already have a list of books that I might be reading next month, so I'll probably be making a video about that just because I feel like this video is already going to be too long. So check that out if you're interested. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!